What's up, noobs? Today I'm going to be doing a Q&A with Nelson Koen about studying real estate and choosing a career path that will lead either into real estate development or prop tech. Nelson is a developer, a licensed contractor, and a Stanford adjunct lecturer. And he's a guest on my YouTube channel because next month I'm going to be a guest speaker at his Stanford Real Estate Finance and Development class. So before we dive into the questions, first, thanks for coming on, Nelson. I try to teach noobs on here, but you teach a legitimate class at Stanford, so I am humbled by your presence. And second, tell everyone a little bit more about what you do, both on the development side and the teaching side.
So thank you so much for having me, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm a civil engineer. I have a background also as an MBA and a construction management master's program. So I've done development, multifamily, high-rise, home building, neighborhood, site work, kind of a lot of different things. For the last 10 years, I have my real estate fund where we buy distressed properties, single-family homes, renovate them, and sell them. I've been teaching at Stanford for 17 years. I started teaching engineering economy, and for the last 12 years, I've been teaching real estate development and finance.
All right, so let's dive into the questions. I want to first talk about real estate degree programs because they're actually relatively new compared to most fields of studies. And the first master's program was actually done in NYU in 1967, and a cluster of schools joined the fray in the 80s. And strange fact, computer science degrees started before real estate degrees, which is really weird because people have been building structures for thousands of years and computers have only been around since like the 40s or 50s. So Stanford has both top-ranked computer science degrees and business degrees, but they don't offer a master's in real estate development. So two-part question. First, do you think Stanford will eventually offer a MSRED program? And second, the real estate industry seems to have gotten along fine without MSREDs for a long time, so it's not necessary to succeed in this industry. So in what situations is it beneficial to get one?
So the first part, I don't think in the short term Stanford will have a degree in real estate. It needs to come from interest from the students and faculty, and there hasn't been that much push to get a degree in real estate at Stanford. I think the focus mainly has been lately in sustainability. So there is a program that may start soon, that's Sustainable Urban Systems. So I can see a path related to real estate in that sense at Stanford. I think a degree in real estate can be beneficial for somebody who has a background that is not related to any engineering, math degree in the first place. So if you study history or arts and you want to get into real estate, a degree in real estate will be very helpful for you. But if you study econ or engineering or business, I think you have an entryway through different paths into real estate.
Yeah, I agree. Since the real estate degree programs are relatively new, most of the people I know in real estate have all sorts of different backgrounds. And I think the one common thing is that the successful ones are just great managers. They manage their time well, they manage their people well, and they manage projects well. So it really doesn't matter so much what you study, as much as how you develop your interpersonal skill sets and your organizational abilities.
Completely.
So that leads me to my next question, because Stanford actually has a pretty big real estate alumni network called Spire, which is really impressive considering there is no formal real estate degree there. It just further proves that while real estate education can help you, it's not necessary to become a developer. So how do most of the Stanford alum in real estate break into the field if there even is a common path?
I don't think there is an actual common path. I think that it's one very typical to start as an analyst, a real estate analyst. So you learn about the numbers, how it works, get the mindset of a developer, and then you can follow different paths in the real estate industry. I also see a lot of people starting as a broker or real estate agent and getting to know how transactions work, and then kind of follow a different path depending on the interest they have. One thing about Spire that I want to mention, it has more than 2,000 members. It's the largest alumni organization at Stanford. It is a very active alumni organization. Before COVID, we used to have events every week or every 2 weeks, a lot of networking, a lot of educational events, symposiums, meetings, kind of really active alumni organization.
So given your background, what do you think is the optimal path into real estate?
I think kind of like I mentioned, I think learning finance, how the numbers work in real estate, understanding a pro forma, understanding a feasibility study, understanding what the developer mind is, what he's looking for in a project, that is a huge advantage. So learning Excel, financial modeling, I think it's a really good skill to have to start a career in real estate.
All right, so switching topics over to proptech. Stanford, obviously with its top-ranked computer science degree, feeds graduates to the Bay Area's startup ecosystems, or the graduates end up founding unicorns themselves. So real estate is notoriously behind the times in terms of technology adoption, but proptech investment is at all-time highs. And you teach a class about real estate finance and development to students from various degree programs, but mostly engineers. So in 17 years of teaching this class, what is the most common gap in knowledge that you feel for engineers in particular that you think any proptech startup founder should know?
It's important to understand the real estate development process. We study the 8 stages of the process. Since you start with your idea, you start the negotiation, you do feasibility analysis, you submit a contract, an offer, getting contract, you do your financial pro forma, do the entitlements, construction, and deliver the project. So understanding the entire process is super important. Mm-hmm. And also, like I mentioned before, the financial portion, understanding how the numbers work, modeling a pro forma for the project. It's also one skill that we teach the students, and they're very grateful for that.
And those 8 steps, at least from my experience, never happen in order. Exactly. It's different for every project. Yeah, but you do have to get them all done.
We mentioned that as a sequence, but they can go in cycles. They can go in different sequence, and in some projects, some of the steps are more important than others. So it depends on each project.
For sure. All right. And for all the engineers out there aspiring to get into real estate, what are the benefits of having engineering backgrounds in real estate development, and what are the setbacks?
So for the engineers, the advantage of having the background in math and numbers, it's easier for them to do the financial modeling, to understand the numbers, and to have a grasp of those ideas. The setbacks, it's what you said, interpersonal skills are super important, and sometimes the engineers may be looking just in one direction, right, wrong, one answer, and need to understand that the interpersonal skills are important, and the relationships, networking, all those things are very, very important too.
Yep, I know about that problem firsthand because I was a very awkward engineer when I was younger. In a lot of ways, I'm still kind of awkward, and still I'm working on my interpersonal skills. So anyway, what do you think are the most promising areas of proptech right now and for the future?
Yeah, so usually proptech tackles 3 different areas: automation, to make processes without people faster and better quality. Disintermediation, removing the middleman in the negotiation or in the transaction, and obsolescence, maybe your property needs to be upgraded. So I think the one that I feel it's a little more behind these days is disintermediation. Most of the transactions are still with brokers, real estate agents, and need to be everything in person. So I think that area has a lot of potential for the future. And the margins, the cost paid to the intermediary, sometimes it's very high. So I think there will be new proptech companies that will address that and try to reduce friction in the transaction. I think that a little with Redfin and Zillow getting there and kind of giving a rebate of the transaction to the buyers. But I think there is a lot of work still to do in that area.
Yeah, I'm actually doing a video specifically on brokerage within proptech soon, exploring all the ways that they're trying to encroach. It's been really tough because the National Association of Realtors is a very strong organization, and commissions are they're great motivation for, especially for the top brokers. And if you can't really lure those top brokers away, which tend to make up the majority of the sales, then you can't really change brokerage in general. It's one of those power law distributions where a select few percent at the top end up taking the majority of the entire industry. So you got to disrupt that in order to change brokerage.
Yeah, they control the access to the information because they have the listings and all that.
Yep.
I think there is something that needs to change from the bottom.
Yeah, because disseminating information is the easy part, and there's so many platforms that do that. But it's about getting it out of the hands of the ones that hold the keys to it.
Yep.
and that's locked behind the commission structure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. What is the most frustrating part of the development process for you that nobody's attempted to solve with proptech yet?
I think that the entitlement portion, it's so dependent on the cities, the timeline for them to review everything, and it's so cumbersome, and the way they give you feedback on your plans, drawings, and how you have to fix them or change them or suggestions. Yep. I think that area, it's ready for a change. Kind of there must be a way to do that in a more efficient way and without generating so much trouble for the developers.
Yeah, and at least in New York City, it's almost rolling the dice. We don't know what our plan examiner is going to say. And if you just get the wrong one on the wrong day, you're going to get a whole lot more pushback on your plans. And just basically your results may vary. So there is very little consistency from examiner to examiner. And there's very little consistency across cities and states and townships and villages. So I totally hear you there, and I haven't seen too many inroads in it. I've seen some companies that try to make the initial site evaluation a little bit more easier so that you can assess what you can build. But in terms of getting things automatically approved, that seems to be more like government tech, because we can do plenty on the architecture side, but at the end of the day, it has to be approved by a human in government. Yeah. And that's been one of the holdups.
Yeah, and I don't think the government will develop the platform. It should be a proptech company that come up with the idea.
Yeah, I don't think the government will be able to lead proptech initiatives on their own. I haven't seen any really good examples of that. Yeah. All right, now we're gonna switch places for the second half of this video, and Nelson is going to interview me.
Yeah, so it's great to have here Derek Xian and have him on the other side. So I have a few questions for you. How did you make your decision to transition from consultant to developer? Was it gradual? Was a long-term goal that you have in mind, or just it happened by the circumstances?
So it was actually a mix of all three. It wasn't like it was totally unplanned, because I did study some real estate finance in college, and real estate was super hot back then. It was a time when there were 100 to 110% mortgages, if you kind of want to figure out my age. But I kind of bookmarked it, and I did a whole bunch of other things. Being a management consultant was one of them. And I took all that disparate experience from a whole bunch of different industries. I think I had like a total of 10 different clients and industries. And eventually I bumped into someone that was a big real estate developer. And I decided to start for him as a consultant. And then I ended up just working for him full time. That was Gale International. And I worked for him for 5 years. So it was kind of just bookmarked. I always wanted to get into real estate at some point. I just didn't know when. So in that sense, it was very gradual in that I had a lot of stops along the way. And the third aspect, external circumstances, I actually drill this point home in a lot of my videos. Everyone's path into real estate is to some degree dictated by external circumstances. And those are things that you can't choose. It's either your upbringing, who with the family you were born into, where you were born, who you grew up with. So like that had a huge factor for me because the developer I worked for lived a mile down the road from me. So, and then that was the town he grew up in. That was the town I grew up in. So that was just one of those external circumstances that worked in my favor.
Oh, that's great. Great to hear. Yeah, we have to find the best path for each of us.
Yep.
So how did you meet your business partner, Yoori? When
So,
and why did you decide to be partners? Was it in love at first sight, or did it take long for you to make that good partnership?
So actually, Yoori and I met quite a few years before we actually decided to partner up because we had met through my work at Gale. She was working for a real estate media company that reported on luxury condo developments. And I was working on a luxury condo. So that's how her company found mine. And then we first met at a meeting about the project that we were working on at Gale. So we had kept in touch over the years, and towards the end of my tenure at Gale, I was starting to go through my Rolodex and look, I was meeting up with all sorts of people to figure out what to do next. And with Yoori, there were so many things that were just aligning. We both had cash almost ready to go for a deal. She was wrapping up a ground up development at that time that she had done all by herself, and she needed a partner. I wasn't going to dive into development myself without having a partner. And if I didn't, I probably would have just gotten a job somewhere else. So yeah, all of that aligned. And then on top of that, our skill sets had good complements. We overlapped in areas where it was important, and we could just backfill each other's skill sets. And then we had strengths in other areas where each of us had weaknesses. So it's worked out pretty well.
Great. That's so important to have skill sets that complement each other. Kind of, you want somebody that thinks differently than you and see the stuff.
Right. And it helps in the areas where we don't overlap. We offer different perspectives because we don't always see eye to eye on everything. And it's healthy to work out the kinks in any business decisions, because if you have groupthink, you might go in the wrong direction without an outside opinion.
Exactly. That's so important. So what has been the biggest challenge you have working as partners? Respect interpersonal relationship, disagreements?
Yeah, so I touched on this before, but a lot of our disagreements actually help us make decisions. But logistically, she's in Korea, so that would probably be the biggest challenge. The positive of it is that one of us is almost always awake, but the negative is that one of us is almost always asleep. So it's hard for us to be working for an extended period on any one thing, given the time difference. But we do have meetings almost every other day, if not every day during the weekdays. So we're always up to date on what we're up to. And given COVID, it really doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're just synced up.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the advantage that we learn how to work remotely wherever we are.
Yep.
So how did you get connected with a broker that sold you your first property?
So we actually found that property on Cushman and Wakefield. So he just came with the listing, but he happened to be a Brown alum, just like Yoori. And I'm still very good friends with him because we like him a lot. We stay in touch. And he's one of those brokers who is more like he's a partner first, and he's always looking out for you. He knows what you're looking for, and then he's a broker second. And that's really one of the qualities that makes a really good broker, because they don't place the sale as a priority and just getting that one commission. They want to develop a relationship with you.
That's so important with brokers, kind of that they have the person in mind first, not the business.
Yep.
So what are the areas of prop tech that you see as more promising?
So I talked a little bit about brokerage before, and not so much that it's promising, but I think it has a lot of room to improve on. And once someone solves that real hurdle of attracting those top brokers that gobble up most of the business, I think you're going to see a sea change in the entire industry. I'd also like to see a lot of improvements in construction technology, or contech, which is sort of another branch of proptech, because there will be enough advancements in AI and robotics to do stuff like bricklaying or putting together drywall, or maybe even forgoing all of that stuff. And I've talked a little bit about nanotech and nanobots building things in swarms, to the point where you don't even have to have humans on site. But that's on the order of decades. I'm more interested in the context side than proptech, but for the immediate opportunities, I think it's more software related and solving problems that where you don't have to develop really good hardware that will go out of date quickly.
So I know that you talk about YD development, talks about the revolution and the evolution, that you see the process as step by step. So in which areas of innovating in your project, in real estate and construction, have you had more success, and in which areas not so much?
I think we've made the biggest inroads in sustainability because we put in a lot of those features into our first project, 424 West 47th Street. As you mentioned, that's been a huge focus on a lot of people's minds. We put in solar panels in that building, which was actually incredibly difficult to do in Midtown Manhattan. And then we did like low flow fixtures, motion sensor lights where you normally wouldn't see them, all sorts of other little things. But there's more and more people in the industry that are aware and have experience installing these things. And that's usually one of the biggest hurdles to adoption. Because if you got a new technology that nobody's used before, there's just so many unknowns and unknown unknowns. And while I may want to take that leap of faith and install something, maybe my architect or my engineer or the investors or the bank are not okay with it. And I can't do it. So usually, like I said, hardware is a little bit more difficult because so many things can go wrong with hardware. And you might need to fix a software system underneath it, as well as the mechanical aspects of it. Usually software platforms can be at least fixed in person on paper or something like that. And when things go wrong, it's not the end of the world. But if you've got a piece of hardware in a building that somebody lives in, it can be a much worse situation.
Exactly. So they can make it more difficult. So it's more difficult to start with a learning curve for that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's great to be talking with you. So looking forward to your participation in our class in a couple of weeks at Stanford.
Yeah. And thank you, Nelson, for joining. And I look forward to meeting your students.
So see you soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Derek.
Stay curious, noobs.